Our next topic, the ravages of COVID-19, millions of unemployed in our country, thousands of people sleeping on the streets, and so many people going hungry every night. An economic and social disaster looming, a potential time bomb as well. The only way forward is economic development, and it is important to kickstart the economy to create jobs so people can work, and once people work, they earn money. It's a very simple formula, and after that, they can feed their families. To discuss this very vital and very important topic, it's my great pleasure to have two guests in the studio today. First and foremost, I'd like to welcome a very prominent businessman and philanthropist, Mr. Noor. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you very much for being here.
Satarba, thanks for having us here.
It's an absolute pleasure. And secondly, a person that I go back many, many years. We did our primary school education together. Well-known businessman, Mr. Mustaq Brey. Assalamu alaikum and welcome.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And thank you very much for having me here today, Satarba.
It's our pleasure, it's our pleasure. Salih, can I pose the first question to you?
Sure.
And it's a saying that we've heard so many, many times over, but it's so apt and relevant today. A hungry man is an angry man. Your comments?
You are so right, Satarba. We must understand one thing very clearly. And sorry I take up your time, but we have to look at it in the context it is. For the first 200-300 years, we had colonization, which ensured that all people of color were deprived of everything. It was also a form of keeping people hungry. Then we had apartheid, which really enforced everything, made sure people of color were moved out, never to come back again to be around the seas and the mountains. And these were all man-made. But COVID-19 is where the change comes in. This is when we realize that it's no more man that carries it, and it's a creator above that has the final say over everything. And with this change, we have come to realize that when you take away the dignity of a person and he's unemployed and he cannot feed his very own family, then you realize that we are in deep trouble. COVID-19 has become a change that the world won't be the same again. We realize very, very clearly now that so many more are unemployed, so many more won't be employed, but it's no more the bottom that will suffer the most. It's right across. You will see that the airlines are gone, pilots are unemployed, and this goes right through the whole sector. It has no color, it has no barrier, but the marginalized will keep on suffering. And as the marginalized are suffering, and really there's nothing really being done, because they even have to worry where the UIF is coming from, where their monthly grants are coming from. They have to suffer with everything. They've had two choices. Either they go into lockdown and not die from COVID, or they die of hunger if they don't go back. And that is the changing point. The world won't be the same anymore, Satarba. We can see it. We are going into an era, a very clear era, which we'll call the new norm. It's got nothing to do with wearing masks or social distancing, which we'll have to carry out. But there will be so many more people marginalized and won't have food on the table. Then you can understand why people get angry, will be angry, and we will see it will even create more criminals, not because they want to be, but because there's a need for it.
Mustaq Bhai, if I can pose the next question
sure.
to you. Looking at it from an economic point of view, whether it's microeconomic or macroeconomic, I think an important question as the point of departure today would be, how bad is our economy at the moment, and are we doing enough to revive it?
Okay, let's just start. When COVID was first announced in South Africa or in the world, and we went in our first lockdown in March this year, I think it was March 27th, by that time we were already in a recession. So that's the starting point. Okay. We were in a negative territory already at that stage. So the economy was broken. And then to add on to that, we then had the lockdown, which completely locked down everything. It stopped exports of a lot of our commodities out of this country. It stopped people working. Some people have lost their jobs. Others have gone on short time. If you look at the tourism industry, there's been 400,000 jobs that have been lost at the moment. So millions of people have been left without a job. And as Solibai said, your job is your dignity. You can put the food on the table for your family. You get the respect of the children and that type of thing. Now once that goes, and it's been across the board, you can check with our GP population, the general practitioners. The medical aides have not been paying them. They haven't seen patients. People have been afraid to go to the hospitals. People have been afraid to go to surgeries for their normal coughs and that checkups and that type of thing. The net benefactors have been the big medical aid societies. Early in April and May, the net cash flow per week was more than R1 billion because people were not going to see the medical practitioners, which they would normally have done. I haven't gone for my normal checkup this year, and a lot of other people haven't gone for their normal checkups or their dental checkups.
So there are people who are scoring big time?
Absolutely. It's a zero-sum game, but we need to get the positioning right again. We need to say this is now a new norm. What is happening to the world? Not just to South Africa, it's happened to the world. And how are we going to restate and how are we going to restart the economy of the world? And the only thing we can really do is we're going to have to look at the micro things. And I believe we should be using places like your forum, for instance, to promote this. I mean, the mosque should become the new center point of economic affairs as well, not just religious affairs. You know, we should know around here how many unemployed electricians there are, how many unemployed mechanics are there, how many unemployed any technicians there are there, right? And we should have a register. So if my fridge is not working at home, I could phone the mosque and say, look, have you got an unemployed technician on your list that I could contact to give him a small job at least to do? And in that way, we can restart the economy. It's going to have to be at the micro level. All of us will have to talk and say, how can we do things differently? The new norm is not going to be what we did for the last number of years.
You are saying that we need to start climbing the ladder once more again.
We're underground at the moment, Starby. We're not even on the, because people are drowning. People are drowning in debt. You'll be shocked to know if you go check with the banks how many people are not able to pay their bonds at the moment or pay for their cars and all those type of things. The numbers are staggering. The banking reporting season has just happened in the last few weeks. And all those banks have reported bad debts, that they've never heard about. Yeah. This is the 1 in 100-year event, by the way. When we sit on a bank board, they ask you, the analysts and the actuaries do stuff, and they say it'll be a 1 in 100-year event. When I sat on the bank board, I said, don't tell me that, man. I'm not going to live for 100 years. But we've seen it now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brey, if I can pose the next question to you. Taking exactly what Mustaq has mentioned now, what would you say, Solibay, and with the experience you've got in business and serving on so many organizations and financial institutions, what would you say is the role of small business, and I emphasize small business, in our economic revival? And the second part of the question is, are financial houses doing enough to assist them?
Satarbhai, one thing you can't take away. Who are the real employers? Whether in good times, bad times, any time, it is a small business. For an example, if you take Kentucky or you take any other restaurant or anybody, they employ people. Every 10 or 15 or 20 people are employed. And if you take and quantify that over 3 or 5 or 10,000 restaurants, then you will realize that they are the ones that are doing the employment, not the big mega corporations or government. They're not the employers. The real work is created by the small business. But you must bear in mind that has also rapidly changed now. Small business has been very badly affected. Now, we are at the moment talking of COVID and ravages of COVID. In South Africa, we have a second hidden COVID that's hitting small businesses like you have never known, and that is the lack of power. By Eskom not functioning, they are totally destroying every essence of business. There are small businesses that go in the morning and find, because of load shedding, their fridge was burnt out or something was gone apart. They're barely make ends meet and keeping employees employed. And now these are added values. So when you look at the second thing that has come about with load shedding, which is adding even more pressure to what we got. But never get away from it. The real employment starts right at the bottom. And then it grows from there. And of course, there's a chain. There's the delivery and there's everything that follows after that. Your second question, have banks done enough? Absolutely not. I know it. I had a lot of people that call us and we deal with it. The banks are living in their own world. They know the clients they have to help, the others they don't have to. Government came about with a 200 billion rand package that would be helping the people. Not even 20 or 30 billion of that has been given out, and we are 5 and 6 months down the line. They are still using the old norms to decide who gets it, who doesn't get it. So my direct answer to you, the banks and the institutions have not done enough.
Mr. Brey, would you agree with that?
Totally. I mean, the exact amount that's been given out so far is between 13 and 17 billion out of 200 billion. But if your textbook is the same textbook, but the world has changed, you can't use that same credit book.
Sure.
It's going to have to be different.
Yes.
You're going to have to relax rules to allow people to get that extra
Why would
funds.
you say that's the case? I mean, why is there this continual, ongoing reluctance?
Well, it's the banks want, out of the 2008 financial crisis as well, the banks worldwide made lots and lots of money. Why is the New York Stock Exchange at one of the highest points at the moment? Because credit is cheap over there. You can get money for 0.1% in US dollars or 0.2% in US dollars. So people are borrowing and putting it in the stock market, hoping it will go up. But I mean, that's the issue.
And then also you must bear clearly in mind that the so-called 200 billion is guaranteed by the government.
Exactly.
It's not the bank's money.
It's not the bank's money.
I mean, they are only the catalyst to give it out.
Absolutely.
But if they're reluctant to give out money that the government has given, then there's something dramatically or drastically wrong.
Yeah.
And you should ask the question 6 months later, if you've only dished out 20% or 10%, then something is amiss. But again, what is Treasury doing about it?
Yeah.
What is government doing about it? I mean, it's not only the banks that we should be blaming. Every day you hear of the huge corruptions, which have all added to this, please. And at the same time, while they try and take the decoy and put this corruption at the forefront, government should be playing a role. They should come and say, what has the bank dispersed? And they're not doing that. And that is why the smaller business and the medium to large are really suffering.
Yeah.
Mustaq Brey, our borders are closed. There's no international flights coming in or going out of the country. The question of promoting the domestic market.
Well, I think promoting the domestic market is very important. But I mean, just getting back to your earlier point now about the fact that you talked about the international borders being closed.
Yeah.
We are net exporters in certain areas, including the motor industry, motor cars and all that type of thing. That's been a backlog. We are net exporters of some of our raw materials. Right. That's not going out. But there are not enough cargo planes flying out of our country on a daily basis. We couldn't send out our abalone to the Far East because there were no cargo planes flying out. We couldn't send out a live lobster to the Far East or to China and that type of thing. So it's affected those areas as well. We couldn't send out our fresh hake overnight to the markets in Europe where there was still a market, a different market, not the restaurant market anymore, but the normal retail market which we found, right? But there weren't enough planes. So that's affected us as well, right? And now your international borders, I mean, we know in the Western Cape, one of the primary earners, in the Western Cape is tourism.
Yes.
That's stopped. It's been completely stopped. So how are we going to now turn around and say, how are we going to get local tourism going? I mean, the first thing we should all be saying is our next holiday is not going to be overseas. I'm going to have to convince Soliba and myself that our next holiday is going to have to be in South Africa.
Yeah.
Because, we're going to have to support South Africa. I'm going to ask Masjid al-Quds not to take the guys to an exotic trip to Iran or Turkey or whatever. Take the guys, if you want to take them on an Islamic trip, take them to Bacha Pir in Durban. Take them to the other mazars. Take them to go see the big Turkish mosque in Midrand, for instance. You with me? Go up the coast to Mossel Bay. There are mazars in Mossel Bay as well. Yeah. We're going to have to get back, and we're going to have a change in mindset. All of us would love to go back to Medina and Makkah. I accept that.
Sure.
But in the meantime, we have to get our local economy going, right? And Allah will accept us if we do it with the right intention, right? That we need to get those people back to work. A lot of my friends are golfers. I mean, they started playing golf again. We should challenge them. If you can afford to play golf, you should be able to afford to take a caddy, whether you don't want to carry a bag, whether you want to got a trolley for your bag or not. Take a caddy. You're putting food on that caddy's table. We should insist on that. Those simple things that we can start doing.
Would you say that over the last couple of months, we are moving in that direction to promote the domestic market, tourism-wise, food production-wise?
Well, food production-wise, I think we've been forced into it. Part of the thing is with our rand going down against the dollar, our importers have all of a sudden caught a cold. They're now selling stuff, or they're buying in stuff at a higher price than they were selling it before, because your rand dollar went down 25%, and you don't normally have that type of margins in a trading entity or in a commodity. So they've been caught with they're out of pocket. So they've been forced to look for local suppliers as well.
Yeah. You know, sorry, but why I'm talking about the domestic market is because if you take India as an example, the tourism sector is a huge contributor
Absolutely.
to their
Yeah.
GDP.
Yeah.
But the internal tourist
Big.
portion of the tourism industry is huge. Obviously, they've got 1.2 billion people, and a lot of Indians want to also go and see the Taj Mahal just as much as Solid by Mustaq, and I would like to go and see the Taj Mahal. So when there's a bit of a slack in the international market, the domestic market actually makes up for it. We've got Table Mountain, we've got Robben Island, we've got the Kruger National Park. The Garden Route is so beautiful. I don't think there can be a more beautiful route than the Garden Route. And yet, I feel that we've not done enough to promote our domestic market.
Yeah, but Siddhartha, can I just tell you on that? Malaysia's given us an example now. You know what they've done locally?
Yeah.
They've given each local person who wants to go on a local holiday a voucher, the government, of 100 ringgits. It's not much, but it's something. Said, yeah, if you want to go on a local holiday, here's 100 ringgits to you.
That's
I mean,
a
that's an
positive
example.
step.
Well,
I mean,
you will
in the US, in Philadelphia, you know what they've done there? They've come in, they called something called 5-4-50.
5-4.
450.
Yeah.
Please spend $5, right, for 50 days at the local shop.
Okay.
You know, it's simple programs.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what that would do to your shops around this area, around the mosque?
So once again, it's a change in mindset.
Absolutely. We're going to have to go back to basics.
Yeah.
Forget about the big textbooks, economic textbooks.
Yeah.
It's not going to help us in this case.
You were saying something?
You know, you must bear in mind that's the same thing that England has done. Not only it's the furlough, but they've allowed people to go out to a restaurant first 3 days, and 50% of the bill will come from the government, up to £10.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
do you
yeah,
know
absolutely.
that in the first 5 months or 4 months of opening up, there were 64 million people that used it. It cost the government 640 million pounds, but that again got the restaurants going.
Yeah.
For the last 2 months, you couldn't get space in a restaurant because everybody wanted to use that incentive of
I didn't
using
know that.
No, yeah,
50% of it. So you have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
But you see, again, we must understand that all our travel people have also been spoiled by overseas tourists. When they come with a pound, it's 22 to 1. When they come to the dollar, it's 17 to 1.
18
So
to
for
1,
them to, they have engaged and arranged that all their rates are based on the dollar, no more the rand, which makes it very difficult for domestic people to keep up with that.
Yeah.
But COVID has changed it,
all that.
because now they have also realized that if we don't lower our rate or we don't do something, then we out of business. Do you know, Sadat Bhai, that I know of people that were top-end hotel managers. First 2 months they had to take a 50% cut in their pay. Now most of them are no more in their jobs. Do you know that 6 months ago you would not get space in a private school? Today is how
can take
many
your pick.
spaces you want, because people can't pay their school
Yeah.
fees, they cannot pay their bonds, they are unemployed, they're moving their children out. This is a game changer, and this is a time for us in retrospect to see that we really need so little to live, enjoy and do what we want. And this has also been a great changer, that it's brought family together, it's bonded family together. So there's been a lot of pluses.
Pluses, no doubt about it. It's also taught us that our needs are few, our wants are many.
Absolutely.
Solly Bhai, many of us, and I'm sure Mustaq Bhai would agree with me, are aware that you have your lips sometimes very close to the ears of people high up in the corridors of decision making.
Oops.
Do they take your advice?
No, I think that's a total perception. I don't believe that. Sadat Bhai, if that was the case, I promise you I would have shouted in every year, no corruption,
I know you would have done
no
that.
shedding, no, don't worry. That is not the case. Look, you must bear in mind, with most of the ministers and people that are, I mean, we grew up together in the struggle. We've been comrades together. We've been brothers together. And that doesn't change. like we know each other, we know them intimately, but at the end of the day, they make the final decisions. Yes, we have access where you can talk to them.
No, that's what I'm saying.
But
When you talk to
we're
them-
not there to give them advice. No. If they need something, it's fine. But otherwise, no. At the end of the day, that's their will. But you can see from what's carrying on at the moment that all of us here sitting, we all desire for things to be normal.
Exactly.
We cannot accept the corruption. We cannot accept everything is overlooked. We cannot accept the fact that people are not charged. We cannot accept that people working in government are not even fired. And as long as all that goes on, it will be very difficult. I can also tell you at this stage, we are very lucky, as much as we might be disappointed, that we have a leader like President Ramaphosa there. Just turn your mind back 3 years, and if you had that leader, then you can imagine where we would be today.
Yeah.
Okay? So let's be thankful of the small things. I mean, we must also understand that he is trying to balance everything. But of course, we as human beings want action. We want things to happen.
Sure.
And that's what we demand. That look, as much as we support you, as much as we're with you, but now we want to see action. Because we cannot allow what has happened. Now, everything is again disguised about COVID and all the corruption that goes in COVID. We've forgotten that corruption has not been something new.
No.
It's from timely memorial.
Absolutely.
But now it's exposed, and the real people that have benefit from it, the major corporations, they are all part and parcel of it, but nobody talks of it.
I even remember the World Cup corruption.
Yes, now,
Yeah,
who were there? There was the major building companies, they all colluded.
Yeah.
But you even forget that 15 years ago, Tiger Brands and all of them colluded in the price of Brey.
Bread, yeah.
I mean,
Competition,
that
yeah.
is from the hungry, from the poorest of the poor.
Yeah.
So all that has been clouded with what's happened with COVID-19. But corruption is here, everywhere, and across the globe. Don't fool yourself. But we demand that should come right and quickly.
So you are saying that we should move forward, we should be positive, and that we should all work together to see that things are going to unfold in a far better way for everybody.
The one thing that nobody can take away from us is hope. The day you lose hope and the day you're not positive, your life goes backwards. We know there are a lot of negatives, don't get me wrong. But each negative has got a flip side. And let's look at that positive and together make a difference. As Mustaq was saying earlier, so many unemployed, how do we add on to bring dignity to them? How, it's all well going giving out food parcels, which we must do. There's no maybe, because
Absolutely,
that is our sadaqah, that is our lila, everything that we got to do, whether we like it or not, and it must be across the board. But that is just the beginning. I mean, there's a lot of other things we can do. As I told you, when a man is unemployed and when a man loses his dignity, then he's got nothing more left.
Yeah.
And that is the point that we must work on quickly, be positive. I think at the end, if we believe in our Creator, which we all do, things will get better.
Inshallah.
We don't know when, but inshallah, the Almighty has said, I will not put a burden greater than you can bear.
Absolutely.
And with that positive mind, I just like to look at the positives. And at the same time, I don't discard the negatives, because I want those things to come right.
Inshallah. Mustaq bhai, one question to you. You've been a very long time in business, heading, alhamdulillah, a number of large companies, sitting on many boards and so on. The question is, are you optimistic of a quick turnaround?
In certain areas, the answer is yes.
Okay.
If I can give you two quick examples, and I think it might just bring it out, and it's both related to ourselves. We're quite big in the fishing industry. We've got shares in Oceana and in Seavis. They're two of the bigger fishing companies in South Africa. If we can get our transport going again, our international transport going again, if we could send out fresh fish overnight again every night, if we could send live lobsters out again every night, there are planes going out, taking it out, we could quickly turn that around.
Okay.
And that hasn't been too bad at the moment, because they were essential services. They operated during the whole period. And alhamdulillah, the Seavis results came out this week, and it was very positive. It was equal to last year. Now, in the bad time, including with additional COVID costs, I said that's a great result.
Well done.
With the fact that it could keep 4,500 jobs going. And the strange thing was, It was strangely that our staff at some of those places like Oceana and Sea Office came back to us and said, look, can't we pack food parcels to our neighbors who've got no jobs? And our, absenteeism rate during this period went down. People were so lucky and happy that they've got a job. Whereas if I take on the other side, House of Monatic wasn't seen as essential services. Got 540 jobs at stake over there at the moment. Nobody's buying new clothing. I haven't bought a pair of socks for the last 6 months or any clothing. No, it's an issue.
It's an issue.
It's an issue.
Yeah.
So how do you get that going? I think next year when people buy and they think they've got a 2021 design, it's really 2020 that wasn't on the market, that wasn't in the shops, that will be renamed 2021. So that might take a bit longer. So you've got those two issues,
Yes.
And we've got to take the best out of everything.
Sure.
And make sure. If I could just give you one quick story about the old Germany. After the Second World War, a lot of people thought that machinery made in Germany was the best in the world, was made in Germany. And it was of a good quality. But quite often it was not made by a multinational within Germany. It was being made in a garage by a few individuals who worked at home as engineers and produced it and was made in Germany. So the world bought it as being made in Germany. And we have to go back to that.
Yeah.
Go back to basics.
And it also reminds me of Vietnam that was bombed about 25 years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
And until recently, it was one of the best performing economies in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
You must bear in mind what Mustaq Bhai has now said, that even today, when you look at the top institutions in Germany, for example, watchmakers, they still have their little wheels being done by homes.
Yeah, at home,
they
yeah.
still have the cases made at home. When you see the finished product, it's not the finished product that you think is coming out of one. And I learned something in Hong Kong 30 years ago. In order to create employment, they employed people by saying, how many watches are you going to do? Not how many hours you're going to work. And how many watches are you going to produce? In those days they had the digital watches.
Yes.
Yes,
And for every watch they were given a percentage of it. In that way they created employment and they created volume and mass.
And incentive.
And incentive. So those are, and also while we at the topic, and Mustaq Bhai is an opportunity, it was 1994, 95, Mustaq, we spoke about Brimstone.
Yeah.
And all of us from the ground got it going.
Yeah.
And today we must be proud, it's the only BEE and the only company listed on the stock exchange, But then looking at the bigger corporations, let's not fool ourselves. I can give you 20 names now. 20 names, whether it's Woolworths, whether it's Truworths, whether it's Old Mutual, everyone took billions out of the country, lost R1 trillion and came back. Nobody talks about that. We started from the bottom, we created the work. These guys took our money, went to invest it overseas and got a hiding of their life.
Yeah.
I worked out the other day, it's close to R1 trillion.
If not more.
Now then you realize that we are starved of a lot of things, and until they realize that the first priority must be at home. Look at what we've created, what a past we've inherited, but they run overseas and they get a hiding. But anyway, at the end of the day, again I say let's look at the positive side and we'll make it happen.
One final question to both of you, knowing the background of both Solly Bhai and Mustaq Bhai, the importance of philanthropy, especially in these times.
I think philanthropy is something that's not for this time. Philanthropy is an ongoing thing.
Okay.
If you go back 30 years, and we were very small and used to give one bursary to somebody, that made a difference. It started everything. But every time and every age has had a need for it. The need was the same in 1986 when we had the riots. I mean, people had no food. I know in Venda, when we did the work, there was no water, Satar Bhai. From 74 to 82, we were only putting boreholes, which, by the way, work up to today. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So philanthropy is an ongoing thing.
Absolutely.
What has happened with COVID, the need is greater.
Okay.
And we're doing more and more and more. But again, what is philanthropy? It comes from the Almighty.
Yeah.
We are only used as catalysts to do the work.
Alhamdulillah.
And we must be grateful
Yeah.
that we've been given the opportunity to touch lives.
Yeah.
Mustaq Bhai?
No, if I could add on to that, I know Solly Bhai and myself, we work together on a lot of these things, right? And We've got such a close work relationship. He'll phone me and I'll phone him, and we don't ask each other questions. That's how much. That's the way we work. And we, for many years, Solly serves on the Sovereign Africa Relief Fund with me as well. For a number of years now we've been going. We've gone across the board, given to everybody. We haven't said it's an Islamic institution or anything like that. It's an institution for humanity. That's the big thing. And the other big thing which you can also learn from that as well, we've been fortunate, we've structured it in a proper way. We give people Section 18A certificates they can claim back from a tax. We've also registered for a simple thing like VAT. So on an annual basis now we get about R500,000 back in VAT, which we can give out again in form of aid. Wonderful. So you've got to do it correctly, and we've got the ability within our people, in our communities, to do things properly.
All the expertise is
there. It's there. We've got so much technology, expertise within our community, so many legal, so many accounting skills, tax skills. It's all there. It's a matter of we need to utilize, and I'm coming back to the fact that I think we need to utilize our mosque as a melting pot, as a focal point, and turn it away from being only a Jummah thing or a lecture place or place where we come make our 5 times salah. It's got to be where everything happens from.
It must be the nerve center of the community.
Absolutely, and I think Sadarba with yourself here and Masjid al-Quds, you've done a great job. You know, I saw the mosque being built when my offices were next door.
Okay.
Right. So, I saw it being open and everything. So I've got a long relationship with the place. You with me? And you've done an absolutely phenomenal job. It's an icon in our area. It's an icon in our country now.
Thank you
but
so
unless you can use that to serve humanity, you have failed the people of South Africa. And that's the challenge I'm giving you.
And Sadarba, I have to add on, and you are well aware of it. Not only do we care for South Africa, through the World Mammon Organization, we care for it globally. And there we have no race, no gender, we care for mankind. And you can't change the world, but every life that you touch is the difference that you make. And I must add on with what Mustaq Bhai is saying. We've been involved with your mosque and many others here. And you people have done a phenomenal job. I've never seen, and I've mentioned it to you, a team so well organized for every event, for every occasion, for every year. You've just handled it superbly. And you as chairman and to your trustees and everybody here, Mubarak, keep on with the good work. You are our inspiration.
Thank you so much, Solly Bhai. I really appreciate that. And on that wonderful note, I'd like to thank Mr. Solly Noor, affectionately known to everybody as Uncle Solly, but to me as Solly Bhai, as well as Mustaq. Thank you so much for coming.
Pleasure.
Nice seeing you after a very, very, very long time. And I'd like to wish both of you all the best. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having us, Satar Bhai.
Thank you so much.
And one thing, carry on with the Sunday forum. We enjoy it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That was our discussion today on how to kickstart the economy, getting people back at work. People can earn money, feed their families, and try to soften the blow in terms of the ravages of COVID-19. Wonderful discussion we had with Mr. Solly Noor and Mr. Mustaq Brey, giving us a very insightful and positive contribution in how to change the mindset and kickstart the economy to create more jobs, more people can work, more people can earn money and put food on the tables of millions of people in our country.